Howdy y'all, 𝒦𝒑 Keto Girl here. I had somebody ask me a question, what can they do to break a stall? Well, first of all, let's define a stall. A stall is not when you don't lose a pound in a day. It's not a stall when you don't lose anything for 1 week. It's not a stall if you don't lose anything for 2 weeks. It's not even a stall if you don't lose something for 3 weeks. A stall technically is when you have 0 changes either on the scale or via measurements for at least 6 weeks. And most of the time you should give it till 8. So if you're just not losing in a week, you're not stalled. It's your body just adjusting and doing what it needs to do. But if you are truly in a stall, there's a few things that you can look at to see if maybe that's what's causing the issue. The number one cause seems to be too many carbs. That's kind of a given, you would think, on a ketogenic diet. If you eat too many carbs, well, you're not going to lose. Well, what if you think that you're eating the right amount of carbs? Well, there are a lot of hidden carbs that you probably haven't even thought of. I have a couple of examples here. One of them is this little spice right here. Seems innocent enough, right? And you think, it's just a spice, no big deal. I can put that on my hamburger or whatever. Well, if you flip it over and you look at the ingredients, you will find that along with some stuff that's not bad, it's listed sugar and sunflower oil and a couple of other things not so good. And you're thinking, well, it's just a little bit, it's no big deal. Well, you're probably right, it probably isn't a big deal. But if you do this every day and you do this with multiple items, it adds up and it does make a difference, especially for those who are very sensitive to carbs, who have a very low threshold for handling carbs. Here's another one. Salt and vinegar pork rinds. Oh, pork rinds. Well, that's perfect. Everybody knows pork rinds are good on a keto diet, right? Well, these happen to be flavored. They're salt and vinegar. That sounds innocent enough, right? Salt, vinegar, why bother looking at the ingredients? But if you turn it over, it says maltodextrin and sugar, dextrose, and some other stuff not so good. So yeah, if you're eating a bag of these a day, not so good. So just be very wary with hidden carbs, and they are everywhere. Salad dressings, even the seasoning packets, just everything. Always, always, always look at the ingredients. Even things that you think are a given. There's going to be sugar, more than likely, or some bad oil in there. So pay very close attention to that. The other thing is, if you're not counting your carbs right, like you have to count every single carb and put that into the equation of the 20 grams allotted. And a lot of people just get really lax about that, and they're like, oh, but it's nuts and they're good for me, so who cares about the carbs? But if you eat, a cup full of macadamia nuts or almonds, that adds up. Not to mention the calories too. And believe it or not, yes, calories do matter. Not so much on a keto diet because you tend not to eat as much because you're satiated, but they still do matter. We just don't focus on it very much. So really watch those carbs. And as you lose weight, your body's not going to need as much food requirements as it used to. So you're probably going to have to adjust your macros after, I believe it's every 20 pounds. You need to kind of give that a look and see how it's changed. And if you're not counting your macros, you might want to do it for a little while just to kind of see where you're at. I tracked my macros for about a year, and then the following year I stopped counting, and I don't count now. But as long as you're doing okay, that's fine if you can live that way. But some people, carbs start creeping back up again, and you need to redo those macros and make sure you're counting those carbs and all, and make sure you're doing what you need to do. So number one, carbs. Check out the carbs. And another thing is, a lot of people on keto diet, they get really excited when they see products in the store, processed foods that are labeled keto. Well, that's all fine and good, but look at the ingredients, and you also need to look at the nutritional information, because if you're eating empty calorie kind of like foods, even if they're technically keto friendly, it can still have a big impact on you because you're not getting the nutrition your body needs. So your body's going to keep wanting to eat more and more, trying to fill that need for the nutrients. So focus more on nutrient dense foods, specifically like your meats and things like that. But you definitely don't want to have your diet mostly processed foods, because even though it says keto, it doesn't mean it's good. It just means it kind of fits in the macros, maybe, if you eat a certain amount, maybe, but just stay away from those. I know they're tempting and they're convenient, but it's just something you really don't want to make a habit of. You know, you can do so many other things. And yes, I know sometimes it takes a little more time to prep as opposed to just grabbing, say, a keto muffin. And, you know, every once in a while, that's fine. I mean, most people can tolerate it every once in a while. But if you're doing that daily, yeah, most of us can't tolerate that. That's not so great. And also, that kind of goes hand in hand with snacking. When you're constantly eating, you never give your body a chance to do what it needs to do. And your insulin is constantly having to do work. And so it kind of puts your body in a mode where it's not burning fat like it should. So if if you're eating right on keto, you really should be able to go 6 hours without eating. You shouldn't be starving. If you are, then something's not right. Either you're not getting enough fat or protein in your diet, or you're not eating enough nutrient-dense foods, because there's really no reason. You should never be hungry on keto. You really shouldn't. Not until it's, you know, that time where you should be eating anyway. But definitely watch the snacking, especially nuts. Ooh, those add up. I'm going to tell you, I had an addiction to macadamia nuts. I had never had one until I started keto. And then I just happened, kept seeing, oh, you know, macadamia nuts are so great on keto. So I decided to try some. Oh, wow. Those were the most delicious things I think I've ever had. I would actually give up chocolate for those stupid things. But it became such a horrible habit. I was eating like, oh God, at least 3 handfuls of those things a day. And guess what? That adds up. Yes, they're good and they have some, you know, nutritional value to them and they have good fats in them, but they add up quickly. They're not allowed in my house anymore because that is one thing I can't control. And it's the oddest thing because I could care less pretty much about any food, really, if it's up in my face, you know, sweets or whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't care. But those macadamia nuts, so watch the nuts for sure. And the other thing I hit on is the eating frequently. One thing you might want to consider, if you think you're doing everything else right, maybe try intermittent fasting. Do some research on that. I'm not going to take a whole hour, you know, talking about that right now. But intermittent fasting was a game changer for me, for sure. And I think it might be worthwhile checking into it and maybe giving it a try. Starting out, you know, maybe skipping breakfast or pushing breakfast a little later. And each day, each week or day or whatever your progress may be, push it out a little bit longer, and next thing you know, all you're having is 2 meals a day. And yes, you can get everything you need in 2 meals. It's not a problem. You can even do it in 1 meal. It's all good. And I did 1 meal a day, 𝒦𝒊𝒊𝒕𝒕𝒆, for about a year. And that was great. It was awesome. It saved so much time on having to deal with cooking foods and things like that and worrying about what I was going to eat and when and all that. I would just fast. It was no big deal. Now, there's a very big difference between fasting and starving yourself. And I know there's a lot of talk about, oh, well, eating disorders, you shouldn't do intermittent fasting. Well, that probably is true. But I had eating disorders and I've had no issue with intermittent fasting. It hadn't put me over the edge, anything like that. I still fast every day, but now I'm only doing it for like 16, 18, maybe 20 hours a day instead of, you know, the whole day or longer fasts or whatever. And it is not putting me over that cliff. It's just not. So, you know, depending on how bad you are, where you're at in your healing, you know, I think it might be worthwhile to try. The other thing to be really cautious about is artificial sweeteners. Now, I don't believe I have an issue with it. I've checked my glucose after eating things with artificial sugar and no problem. However, the one thing I can't test is what reaction my insulin has. Even though my glucose doesn't go up, maybe my insulin is having a reaction to it. I don't know that because I can't test that. So I'm kind of, well, now that I'm carnivore, I pretty much eliminated it for the most part. So people can have different reactions to artificial sweetener. Some people will have an insulin reaction, some people won't. So you just kind of have to see what happens with your body. And all those keto desserts and keto fat bombs and all those kind of things that are yummy. And yes, I did it too. And yes, I've created recipes for them. And they're wonderful and they're nice to have, specifically at holidays. It's great to be able to indulge and know you're still pretty much staying on track. But if you're having it every day, you're having it 2, 3, 4 times a week, that adds up and you may be having a reaction to it that you don't realize. And that could be stopping you from, losing the weight that you want to lose or achieving whatever goal it is. So definitely watch the artificial sweetener and see maybe how it reacts with you. Like I said, the insulin is hard to test because there is no meter you can just buy on the internet to test that. So, you may go without it for a week and see what happens. And really curb those keto desserts. I know they're fun. Believe me, I did my share. And I'm not against it because I think sometimes if you allow yourself to kind of taper off, it's better for you instead of going cold turkey. It just depends on what kind of person you are. For me, it was better because I was a major sweetaholic, no doubt about it. I love my sugar. And so for me, having that substitute kind of helped me. And I was able to eventually wean off of it. So it's all good. Now, some people can't do that and they need to go cold turkey, and that's fine. Everybody has to figure out what works for them. But definitely check out the artificial sweeteners and see how your body reacts to it. Okay. Also another thing, stress. If you're going through a lot of stress, your body reacts to that. All these hormones that help you stay full and etc. There's just all kinds of crazy stuff going on in your body. And it will absolutely stop your weight loss in its tracks if you are stressed. Also, a lack of sleep. It does the same thing. It messes with your hormones, which will keep you from losing weight. It's definitely a factor. And the other thing, if you have had something very stressful in your life happen, like say a surgery, there is all kinds of inflammation going on in your body. And you just can't expect your body to be worried about losing weight and burning your fat when it has to deal with all the inflammation and the healing and all that. It doesn't care what your body looks like on the outside. It is there for self-preservation. It is going to deal with what needs to be dealt with first. Doesn't care about your weight loss. So just be patient with that. Let your body heal. If you're having issues like that, it's just going to take time, and it may be a long time. And I hate to say that, but sometimes it does. And also, as we're talking about inflammation, there are certain foods that inflame one person but not another. For instance, eggs. I don't think I have an issue with eggs, but I don't really know because I've never really been without eggs for any period of time. So I decided just to check, just to experiment, since I'm doing carnivore anyway, I stopped eating eggs. And in about another 2 or 3 weeks, I'll reintroduce eggs and see what happens to my body, see how it feels, see what the scale says, and etc. And then I'll know. But until I eliminate those eggs, I'll never know if that was the issue or not. And the same goes with like heavy whipping cream. And be really careful what's in that, because carrageenan is a horrible thing, and it did really mess me up. So be real careful with the additives, because one person may be fine with it and another person may not. You are your own person and you can't compare yourself to anybody else. You have to figure out what works for you. Oh, and a big one, alcohol. Yes, on keto you say, oh, well, you can have alcohol. Yes, you can, sure. But just understand one thing. When you drink alcohol, your body is going to take care of the alcohol first, period. That is its main function right there. It is going to try to get rid of that toxin. So your liver is going to go in overdrive and your body's going to be trying to burn that. It's not going to be burning your fat. It's not going to be burning ketones. It's not going to be, it's not burning any of that. So it's going to be burning that alcohol. So guess what? If it's burning that and nothing else, then you're not in fat burning mode. No. So if you do this continuously, like every day, or really imbibing a lot over the weekend, not that I've ever done that, but it will stop your weight loss in its tracks. It will. And some people are more sensitive to that than others. Some may be able to drink a glass of wine a day, maybe. And that's fine if you can get away with that. But most of us probably can't. So if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, you might want to consider easing up on that a little bit. So yeah, I think I've hit everything on my list. Anyway, I hope this is helpful. And if all else fails, please feel free to send me a message and I'll see if I can't figure it out, because like I said, everybody is very individual and they have their own needs. And if I don't know your background, what you're eating, how much you're eating, how much alcohol, do you have stress, are you not sleeping? I can't really tell you how to, make a plan and to lose that weight. And this is why you're stalling. I don't know. So go through all of that. And if none of this rings true, there's a very good possibility that you could have something medically wrong, like with your thyroid or, I don't know, there's all kinds of different medical issues you can have that will affect you and not allow you to lose weight, especially if it causes stress and inflammation in the body. So you definitely want to get that checked out if you've tried everything else and it's been, 8 weeks and 0 changes and you're sure you are doing everything perfect and you've eliminated the nuts and you've eliminated the snacking and your intermittent fasting and you're doing all those things and you still are just not losing, then maybe it's time to check with the doctor and see if there's something there that you need to address first. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Have a wonderful day.